Okay, perfect. All right. Hello again, everybody. So nice to meet you. If you haven't seen me before, I'm Brett Salakis. I'm one of the Aussie Ed team, and it's great to be able to talk to everyone and see you all again. I've got two very special people with me yet again today. I have Kimberley Sutton, who's one of the other Aussie Ed team. Kimberley, you want to give a wave and say hello?
Hi everyone, how's it going? Not that you can answer me.
And we have Dr. Michael Bezzina. Is that how you'd like us to call you, Dr. Michael?
Just call me Mick, and you can call me Sir, Brett.
I can call you Sir because you're one of my big bosses at work.
Fine. Good afternoon, everyone.
All right. So, Mick, you are here for a particular reason. We have an upcoming chat on authentic learning, and we all know that you've got a PhD in curriculum development, and that was done a little while ago, and you have had an ongoing passion to really bring about authentic learning and keep it live and lived within our schools. I'd love you to be able to say hello.
Brett, are you there?
Here.
Oh.
Are you there, Mike?
I'm still here, Brett, but you froze.
Oh, okay. I better go again then. That's okay. I was just going to ask you to maybe introduce yourself and say hello to everybody and tell us why we've picked you, because I know why we've picked you to come and talk to us today, and maybe give us a little bit of a heads up about what you think about authentic learning.
Great. Thanks, Brett. Thanks for the invitation from you and Kim to be here this afternoon. I guess for me, the whole notion of authentic learning and authenticity in the work we do as educators has been a passion of mine since my earliest teaching days, even though I probably wouldn't have used that language to describe it. I just always knew in my bones that if education was to mean anything, it had to touch the lives of the young people we were dealing with. So as a young classroom teacher and even as an older one, I was constantly looking for ways to engage with stuff that was challenging young people, with media that was appropriate to young people, with problems that young people had to address. And that's probably a philosophy that's carried me through subsequent lives as a pre-service teacher educator, as a professional bureaucrat in another diocese, and as a lecturer in educational leadership more recently, and now finally to this position at Sydney CEO. And for me, the notion of authenticity, for Australians, you know, the notion of being fair dinkum is probably the easiest way of capturing it. It's what we say we do, we actually do. And when I took on this role in Sydney CEO as Director of Teaching and Learning, it seemed to me that one of our challenges was to not get wrapped up in the shackles that modern education provides of the only things that count being the measurables, and to not be limited to the easy answers, so that if you want to know how a school's going, you talk about its NAPLAN or its HSC score. Not enough. Doesn't match our own rhetoric about the wonderful nature of humanity and the complexity of people as spiritual beings, as social beings, as creative beings. So I'm just as interested in art, music, and social engagement, and critical thinking, and participation in church as I am in a score out of 100 on something. And my challenge as a person with designated responsibility in this system is to try and engage people in that kind of thinking.
That's fantastic. So it sounds to me like you really got this mindset of developing the whole child, not just trying to look at one particular thing to try and boost up a score, but developing the whole person. Do you know what? And that benefits our society.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost a truism. Nobody's going to disagree with the notion of the fact that as educators we're on about the whole person, and in our particular system as Catholic educators we have a particular responsibility. The trouble is, if you look at what we spend most of our time doing, or the things to which we hold people accountable, it's a far narrower set of ideas. What's happened is we get so busy as teachers in complying that we stop asking the questions that made us teachers in the first place. If I could just share a little experience from last year when I was new in the job, I knew I wanted to and needed to engage principals with this whole agenda, and so I prepared a session at a couple of principals meetings. And I have to say, I don't know that I've ever been so nervous, because I thought, if I can't get principals on board with this agenda, the whole thing is sunk. I have to tell you that by making it okay, by prioritising a conversation about learning, those principles just came alive. Because what it did is it connected people with the reason they became teachers in the first place. You can call it moral purpose if you want to get fancy about it, but they kind of said, yes, this is what we should be doing. Now the trouble is, they also said, but the Board of Studies wants this, the Catholic Education Office wants that, the parents want the other, the media wants this, and the challenge is, how do we help people navigate those complexities?
Look, I know Kimberley's got a question for you, but I just want to point out, I love the fact that in your storytelling here, I think you can take the teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the teacher out of the man. To answer that question, you told me a beautiful little story, and you told me a real story. And if we're here to talk about authentic learning, there's nothing more authentic than giving a real, true experience of yourself. So I love that. I love the way that you explained that point. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that exact same thing when you said, do you mind if I tell a story? I went, of course, tell the story.
I got another one about the three little pigs, but I don't know that that's appropriate for today.
Oh, it depends if we're building houses or not.
That's right.
Or we're running from wolves, one or the other. All right. Now, first question, and I think you covered bits and pieces of it, but a real question I think that everyone would like to hear the answer of is, what do you believe are the essential components of authentic learning?
Okay, I'm going to answer that in a couple of ways. I think at its crudest level, for me, what I think is authentic learning is that language, the Australian term fair income learning. It's learning that connects with what Jerry Starrett calls the trajectory of the lives of the young people with whom we work. That is, that it has significance for them, it has meaning for them, it's not just as simple as relevance. It has qualities. Sometimes when people hear me or others talk about authentic learning, they think it's about something that's warm and fluffy and doesn't have rigor about it. And in fact, in the conversations we've had around the Sydney Archdiocese over the last year and a half, it's clear that rigor has a role as well, but there are expectations, that there are challenges that young people have to live up to. But in many respects, it doesn't matter what I think authentic learning is. What's important as you try and move a system of schools is what we think. And many of the people who will be watching this and talking about it will be familiar with the process we've gone through in Sydney in the last year and a half, where we've tried to engage, to the extent that you can in a system of 150 schools, every school and every teacher in some kind of discussion about what it means for them as individuals, and then what it means for them as school communities, and finally what it means for all of us as a school system. And we've developed a statement that begins by saying authentic learning is learning which is relevant, purposeful and engaging. It's rigorous and empowering. It's learning that enables students to live lives of promise and meaning in a rapidly changing world. Now it goes on to say a whole lot of other things, and we could probably put a link up on the Twitter feed at some stage to the document that the leadership team's approved, that statement and what follows came out of a long period of conversations, and it was shaped up by a group of about 50 people from schools and offices to come to its final form. If we don't commit to a shared understanding, we're not going to act out of it. And so that's probably what I'd want to say about that, Kim.
Okay. Thank you very much. Alrighty then. I have another question as well. In saying that, it made me jump to this question. How can school leaders implement authentic learning, authentic teaching, and these learning practices?
Look, the first and most important thing, I believe, is that school leaders need to engage their staffs in conversations like the ones you and I are having now, so that as a school, as a staff of people engaged with a particular school community, we can have a shared view of what we mean by authentic learning. And one of the interesting experiences that I've had in facilitating processes over the last year and a half is when you get groups of people together and say, what do you think are the identifying qualities of authentic learning? People will come at it from different angles. And they've never had the conversation, so everybody assumes that everyone else thinks the same thing as they do. And until you have the conversation, you can't be clear about that. And then there's a sense that we need to go beyond that and say, well, if we say these things about authentic learning, we must do certain things. School leaders need to build a culture that has trust, it has respect, people are still accountable. We need to make sure that it's all right to take a risk. If I believe that the consequences of trying something and failing are going to be very harmful to my career, I'm certainly not going to do too many experiments. I'm not going to try out too many new ideas. And then there are the other things. You know, we can't be authentic in our approach to learning unless we're connected to the wider body of the profession and the researchers. So we need to be tapping into that. I think we don't work through authentic learning in a school as a set of individuals. We do it as a community. And last but by no means least, principals and other school leaders need to be making spaces where we can listen to the kids and listen to the parents. That's, you know, right up there near the top of the list.
That's great. That's great. Thank you very much for that. Look, I'm going to throw down a little bit of a challenge to you here, Mick. I'm glad that you used a good Aussie term. You spoke about being fair income, and I'm going to get fair income with you at the moment. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to warn you. I'm probably going to tweet out what you answer here. So fair warning. If you had the opportunity to speak to the teachers coming up, because we've all heard that saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and we can have all the leadership teams, and we want to do this, we want to create authentic learning in our classroom, we put everything in, but at the end of the day, it's what the teacher does in their classroom that's going to make the difference to the child who's sitting there. And I want to ask you right now, if you had the chance to send a message to all the pre-service teachers, to send a message to all the teachers who were in your system working, and I'm happy to say I'm one of them. And you know what? We've got this beautiful platform where you can now send a message to teachers around the globe, all about authentic learning. They're sitting in their classrooms, ready to listen to you. What is it that you say to those people about authentic learning? What is your challenge to them?
Preferably in 100 characters or less, Mick.
Oh, that's right. He's got to tweet it, hasn't he? Okay. It's very simple. Get back in touch with the reasons that you became a teacher in the first place.
Love it.
No teacher decided to become a teacher to, upon the end of their career, look back and think, I really helped that child get that really good score in NAPLAN.
Well, I've often said that I don't know any teacher that became a teacher for that reason, to get them a better score in NAPLAN. When you meet kids, as you will have done and as I do with students that I've had at both school and university level, they don't come back and tell me what mark they got in a subject. They'll remember some episode when we were having a conversation that I don't even remember that meant something to them. So it goes to relationship, it goes to our commitment to making a difference in the lives of young people. Those who became teachers to get rich and famous, they left the profession long ago.
That's it. Relationship is key. Relationship is key.
Yeah.
All right. Do you know what? I would like, unless you would like to say anything else, I'd probably like to pull up stumps here. Michael, Mick, is there anything else you would like to say on the topic of authentic learning?
Can I just say that the Aussie Ed initiative is a great example of how teachers can be sustained in their pursuit of authentic learning. You might call it all kinds of different things. It's the language that we've chosen to use here in Sydney, and it's a label that I'll probably have to live with for the rest of my career because of the way we've done it. But with the kinds of people who are engaging with Aussie Ed, the kinds of people who are engaged in some of the work around authentic learning that we've got going in Sydney, that's where the energy is going to come from. That's what's going to carry people through the dark days when they're doing their umpteenth report and it's late at night and they've got lessons to prepare for the next day and they can't remember what it was all about. So I just want to say thank you to Brett and Kim and all the others in Aussie Ed who have taken these initiatives, and a big hello to people who are not from the Sydney Archdiocese who might have so little to do in their lives they're listening or watching this. Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you so much, Mick.
Thank you. Thank you very much.